are live. Sorry, I know the lights are kind of screwing with everything here. This is going to be my last South Florida live. So, I guess I'll just pick this up. It's going to be an open forum. We're going to just do a general Q&A. As always, going to shout out the online training courses that we offer. And any elite members from those training courses, your questions will have priority. We have online training courses for everything from pet dogs to working dogs to sport and competition obedience. And we also have a Patreon, and we have a lot of in-person training at various locations. So with all that being said and gotten out of the way, we'll wait for some people to jump on here, and we'll get started. So as always, I enjoy doing these lives. This one will be cigarless because I've had a few over the last few days, so I'm gonna chill out a little bit today. I don't like going too hard on those. Looking forward to getting back to the dogs, training the dogs. You know, people are always asking me what's going on with the dogs. You know, I still got Gage, I still got Chico. You know, we're working towards preparing these dogs for trial season next year. And, you know, I'm contemplating some new projects. It's always, you never want to take on too many dogs. That's one thing I've learned, you know. Sometimes your eyes get bigger than your stomach, so to speak, when it comes to the dogs and all the things you want to accomplish from a training perspective. I find that 3 dogs is about my max when it comes to training for competition. So, you know, I'm kind of I got Gage and Chico going, and then I kind of have a couple of females that I'm working a little bit here and there on the side. So, okay, so and then we'll get started. Just give me a second. I gotta drink here. Okay. How's everybody doing? I see y'all jumping on here. Better Built Dogs says, how many dogs is the right number for a trainer employee? Well, you're starting to get into the territory where I talk about, you know, managing employees and managing trainers and, you know, how best to scale your business. That's all stuff I go over in my trainer's course. So I'm going to honor that and not really kind of get into the details of it here. Suffice to say, I have worked it out over the years of doing it and trying it a lot of different ways. And I do have a number that I like to stick with. We got Dwight saying, what's the best approach for doing protection work for a dog you're handling? The best approach is to find someone that knows what they're doing to develop your dog and go see them frequently so that they can develop and train your dog. At the end of the day, there is no chance that if you're asking me that question, you should be doing it. I know, you know, there's a lot, and at some point I'm going to have to come out with a course for kind of train your own dog in protection, and provide some limited exercises that it is safe for a handler to do, things like so on and so forth. But for the most part, it's something that you really can't do on your own. You cannot finish a protection dog on your own. You can't do a lot of this stuff on your own. It's not rocket science, but it's really not something you can do on your own. It's kind of like you can't fight yourself, you know? It's kind of in that same category. So, you know, suffice to say, if you're asking that question, go find yourself a professional and get that training. Christopher is asking, I'm wondering if any of your locations are looking for kennel attendants or trainers. I never look for trainers. You know, I look for, sometimes we are hiring. The My location right now, I think we're taking on some apprentices. That's not a paid position, obviously. But in terms of kennel attendants, I don't believe we're currently hiring, no. I'll tell you what, just as I said in my last live on Instagram, I really enjoy being down in South Florida, and I am contemplating maybe cracking open a South Florida location. But if somebody's interested in partnering with me, and you're in my elite trainer program, or you've got some you've got an interesting offer to make, by all means hit me up, and maybe we can talk. I am really kicking around the idea of a South Florida location because I come here a lot. I like the area. I like the weather, and I can see myself spending more time down here as the years go by if things go the way I want them to go. So I would certainly be open to a South Florida location, but it would have to be the right partnership and the right situation. Jerry says, when working dogs in protection, do you notice the difference between shepherds and Rottweilers, and how do you handle the... Well, typically, a working line German Shepherd is going to have a more working prey drive than a Rottweiler. The Rottweilers tend to be working more out of their nerves than the working German Shepherd. So you're going to tap those nerves. Those people in my Protection Foundation courses, or course, I should say, not courses. Those people in my Protection Foundations course know how you're going to do that. But you're going to tap into those nerves. You're going to generate arousal from the dog's nerves, and then you're going to channel it into prey behaviors, by work, so on and so forth. Caitlin, I already answered that question in my last live. I don't really have a favorite e-collar. I use different ones for different things, and I don't really have a preference when it comes to e-collars. E-collar Technologies is cheap, and it's not a bad device for the money. Um, the quality, the overall quality of an e-collar technology collar, like in terms of like how long they last, it's mediocre. It's not great. It's not terrible generally. Sometimes they come out of the box defective. The great thing about e-collar technologies is when it's under warranty, they will replace parts, and they're not too difficult to reach or to deal with. Dogtra, in my opinion, makes a better unit, and like the overall quality of a Dogtra is better, and then their bigger units have a lot more top end. And I like the low profile of their ARC and 1900 NCPs. It's a low profile collar, even the bigger units, but their communication is not good. So I think the quality is there, but unfortunately, if you married the ease of dealing with e-collar technologies, like for instance, let's say Dogtra, right? Like I've reached out to these people like 4 freaking times over the years saying, hey, like I'm interested in carrying your collars, let's do something, let's work together. They absolutely do not respond, nothing from them, or they'll send me a dealer form, I'll fill it out, and then they won't get back to me. They're just ridiculous. So I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm trying to sell your collars. Imagine if I was just trying to get a part replaced or something like that, it would just be an absolute hellish experience. So, if you married e-collar technologies customer service to the overall quality of a dog collar, they will be the undisputed top tier, collar in dog sport, or sorry, in the dog world, right? The best e-collar for your money, in my opinion. But their customer service is lacking, and their communication is lacking, and you know it just really makes you wonder what's going on over there, that you invest that much money and time into developing this fantastic product, but you can't be bothered to I guess, go the slight extra mile to get it sold properly. It doesn't speak very well to whoever's managing that team, but regardless. Jonathan says, drop a like on the video, guys. Yeah, that's very true. I got 4 people in here watching. I have 18 likes, and I just sit here and answer people's questions and talk dogs. The least you can do is like the video, because when you like the video, it helps the algorithm. And when it helps the algorithm, the video gets more views. And I'm not doing this to just talk to myself. So by all means, guys, like the video. If you like the video, I'll keep going. If you don't like the video, you don't find it interesting, I can just chill out and enjoy this beautiful Florida evening. I see some likes popping in here. That's good. Let's get a few more going. Once we get up to 40, I'll keep going. Keep answering your questions. Ooh, we got 36 likes. We got 4 more to go, and I'll keep going. All right. I see a bunch of questions rolling in here, so let's get after it. We're at 45. Thank you very much, fellas. Keep dropping those likes if you're enjoying the content. So, Zatsbrick says, my female's environmental nerve improved massively after her second heat, which she didn't have until 3 years old. Ever had anything like this happen? Um, yeah, I mean, I I don't. Off the top of my head, no. But I'll say I have seen some dogs get better from a nerve perspective as they age. Some don't, some do. I've certainly seen a vast difference in the overall performance and the quality of the dog's nerve between the ages of 1 and 2.5 to 3 years of age. So, I don't know that it would have anything to do with the dog's heat. It could simply be just the mental and physical development of the dog. Hugo asks, why don't you keep Astro for competition? Competition takes time, Hugo, right? So the handlers, Astro's owners and handlers, which are actually, trainers that some of my top trainers, a couple of my top trainers, Jess and Austin, Astro's their dog. Yeah, he comes from our breeding, but he's their dog. They've raised him, they've trained him, they put the time into him, and they've decided that they don't have time to compete the dog. And we can't just keep every dog that we have. So when a fantastically well-trained prospect like that comes along, we will make him available. Some people took offense to me saying that this dog is capable of making a PSA 3. Now, anybody that does PSA that's met the dog knows that that's the case, because when I say a dog is capable of making a PSA 3, I don't mean that he's trained to a 3. I mean that he has the quality, which is not so common, to make that level. He has that combination of bid ability, hardness, and drive that he can go to that level. And he's already demonstrated that in the training that he has. He could easily be cleaned up and do a 1 in a relatively short period of time. So as to why I don't keep them, I mean, there's a lot of dogs that we like, but we sell. We're in the dog selling business, right? Yeah, I don't know. Guys, it's the usual million questions about Mace. I sold him a long time ago. Don't know where he's at right now. Unfortunately, people didn't keep in contact with me. It is what it is. Tyler Cunningham says, just started your puppy class. Can't wait to learn some of your techniques. I hope you enjoy. Let's see what else we got here. Vertex Canine UK says, what would young early 20s has get for personal protection? What would I get for? I'd probably just get a working line German Shepherd or Malinois. That's what I would get. Don't reinvent the wheel. I've tried a lot of off breeds. I'm one of those people. I don't take people's word for it. I go and try different things. I've tried the Pressas. I've tried the Rotties. And I've trained a fair few off breeds. Bouvier, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, you always come back to the working line German Shepherd and the Belgian Malinois for a reason. Those are the dogs that are bred with the most consistency and quality and have the traits you're looking for that type of work. Someone at Macedonian Gangster says, did you really steal that Dutchie from Holland? Well, I bought the Dutchies. Any Dutchie I've bought from Holland, I bought. I didn't actually steal them, but I did buy them. No, Macedonian Gangster says, did you times think that Mace was too much dog for your training program and customers? Well, for my customers, he was definitely too much of a dog. It's not a dog that you buy to sell and make money on. For the training program, absolutely not. The dog is not, he wasn't even the worst dog that we trained. He's the most famous dog because we did it from start to finish on YouTube. He's not the worst. I've got way more infamous dogs than Mr. Mace, ever was that we trained here, and went through the whole program with. So there was definitely never any doubt that the dog would be trained. The only doubt is, if we were going to be able to find a place for him. But I didn't buy that dog to make money selling him. I bought that dog sometimes because you just do something. You do things because you can do them, right? And it's good for people to see sometimes what you're able to do. He was certainly not the most extreme dog we've trained. Mm. A sapient emerges. When you ever think about selling your dog? Got my second dog 4 months ago, and everyone seems to like him a lot. Taught him many things, knows almost all tricks as my 3-year-old. Define sell your dog. Like, I mean, you know, there's a balance to be struck. There's sometimes you get a dog and it's very clear over a period of time that the dog just simply does not have the qualities that you need in order to get where you want with that dog. On the flip side, I think a lot of people kind of overestimate their abilities as a trainer and blame the dog for deficiencies that are actually theirs, or deficiencies that are not realistic, especially when you're looking at like a puppy. So, like, for instance, I have a client right now. We raised and trained this dog for him as a level 1 family protection dog. And this dog is a very nice young German Shepherd that we just finished training. I guess this guy decided he wanted to do IGP as well. So today he contacted my general manager that runs Shield Canine. And he contacted him. He said, "Hey, I was looking at videos of the dog or pictures of the dog or whatever, and I noticed that his tail is too long." By the way, keep in mind, this guy's talking about a dog that is like 7, 8 months old. The tail is too long. And in dog sport, if the tail be disqualified or lose points or something like that. So number one, this person already identified himself as extremely ignorant. He knows absolutely nothing, but he's making pronouncements, right? And he said, "Oh, the dog's tail is too long." Like, number one, it's a German Shepherd. I don't know if well, obviously he's not aware, but German Shepherd puppies grow awkwardly. There'll be parts of them that grow and then other parts that don't. So for instance, like the back legs will grow and the front legs don't. And then, the head will grow and the rest of the body won't, or the body will grow and the head doesn't grow, or, like they grow awkwardly, So of course the tail is long, the paws are big, the dog is awkward, right? Because he's a puppy, right? Instead of saying, "Hey, is the tail of the dog too long?" But I've never, by the way, ever in my life heard of a German Shepherd with a tail too long. Like, it's never been a complaint that I've ever heard. But instead of saying, "Hey, the dog's tail looks long," which, by the way, it doesn't. The dog's tail is in perfect proportion to his body and doesn't look in any way too long. He's a normal looking puppy. Going to be a really nice looking dog, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised if he grows into a dog that can actually earn a V rating in show. But regardless, dog's tail's too long. He didn't ask if the dog's tail was too long. He said the dog's tail was too long, which already identifies him as someone who doesn't know what he's talking about. Then he goes, "Oh, the tail's too long, and if the tail touches the ground," which, by the way, having a long tail doesn't mean anything about the tail touching the ground. What, do you plan for the tail to be between his legs? Do you plan for his tail to be dragging on the ground? If he's wagging, his tail will be up in the air no matter how long it is. But regardless, the tail touching the ground is going to be a fault in dog sport. No, it isn't. Maybe you should ask the guy who, I don't know, went and competed and finished top 10 in the world if it's going to be a problem in dog sport if your dog's tail touches the ground. No, he didn't ask. He just said it was going to be a problem, which it wouldn't be. A, tail's not too long. B, that's not a thing at all, right? So he made those two pronouncements. So my general manager called me. He's like, "Hey, Haz, like, what do you want me to do with this?" I said, "Offer him his money back, like his deposit back, and I don't want to deal with him anymore." Now, I could have gone to the whole thing of like, "Hey, let's talk about it. Let's convince him that he's wrong and blah, blah, blah." I don't care. It's a perfectly good dog. I'll sell that dog all day, any day. And quite frankly, now he's identified himself as someone that is ignorant. He's identified himself as someone that isn't willing to admit that he doesn't know, and he's making pronouncements on things that he doesn't know. This is not someone who's going to have good training outcomes. This is not someone who I want to have one of my dogs, because this person's going to be a problem. They're going to be calling you for every little thing that's wrong with the dog, in their mind. Every deficiency for the dog, every training issue the dog has is going to be your fault. It's not going to be his fault, right? And I'm actually thankful that he's identified himself as this type of individual early, because now I get to get out of it, right? I get to get out of it. And if he happens to watch this, which I don't think he will, but if he does happen to watch this, hey man, it is what it is, right? Like, when you don't know, don't make pronouncements. You call us, you ask questions. You're dealing with us for a reason. And if you don't trust us and you don't want to deal with us, by all means don't. And I'll be happy to keep that dog. That dog is a fantastic young dog. He's going to be a real looker, and he has working quality to boot. Really nice pedigree. I have no problem selling that dog to somebody else that will be a lot more deserving and, quite frankly, a lot less of a headache. So that's a long answer to your short question. So yeah, I guess going back to the original question of, do you ever sell a dog? Sometimes it's right to do it, but in some cases, I would say, especially if you're more inexperienced, stick with it longer and set a goal for yourself. So for instance, I'll give you guys Gage, right? My dog, Gage, my personal dog, Gage. Now, I was certainly not inexperienced when I took Gage, but I said there was some really good things about him, and then there were some things that I identified as being a potential problem. And in terms of his grip and maybe some of his social behavior was not what I would want, and still, to be honest, isn't ideal. But I said to myself, I'm going to take this puppy, I'm going to make an IGP3 with this dog, and then I'm going to decide what I'm going to do, right? So instead of saying, I'm going to take this puppy and we're going to see how it goes, and the second things are going wrong, I'm just going to quit and get rid of the dog, I made a reasonable goal. I said, I'm going to make an IGP3 with this dog. I'm going to title him to the level of IGP3. Now, there's a fair bit of work in that process. So I set myself on that journey. We made the IGP3. And then at that point, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to keep him. I know that there's enough here that I can work with. Lo and behold, we achieved more than my wildest dreams could have imagined with him, and finished top 10 in the world. And I'm really happy for that. And I think I could do it again with him. So, that's an example of, sticking with it and not always looking for perfection, looking for enough good there and working as a trainer to highlight the good and de-emphasize the bad, right? Leashless Canine says, good evening, have you ever heard of Game Fair that takes place each August in Minnesota? I think it would be super cool to see you there. Maybe you could. No, I haven't, but I definitely wouldn't go to Minnesota. That is way too far away, especially to do something like a demo. You got to pay me like $100,000 to go to Minnesota. I've been there a couple times, enough to know that it is cold, and I'm not going back unless there's a lot of money involved. David says, is it okay to correct a puppy that invariably barks at other dogs? How do you fix this? My puppy is very well trained and understands quiet and leave it. Well, it's very normal for puppies to bark at other dogs. I generally will keep them moving. I'll put some light pressure on them just to make it unpleasant for them to bark at the other dog, and I won't reinforce that behavior in any capacity, but it's not something I worry about too much. By the way, guys, for those of you asking about my website, Patreon, online training, in-person training, links are in the description below. I'm just June Junko says, taking the tracking course now. Do you have any plans on adding more videos showing the drive and learning curve for different ages and skill levels of dogs? I would love to see more examples. I mean, there's hours of video in there already. I mean, it's pretty set and set. Like, the way that I show it in the course is the way that I do it with any dog, any puppy, and I show puppies and adults, right? I show a puppy with lower food drive, and I show an adult dog, I show adult dogs that have higher food drive. So I kind of show everything in the course. I don't really have any plans to add anything additional there. You just got to follow the process. I find a lot of people with the tracking are in such a big hurry, to get to the part where the dog's actually tracking, that they forget the foundation, and then that's why they have problems, and then they think it's because their dog's special or different. It's like, no, you just skip steps, right? All right, let's see. Guys, like when you guys ask me kid questions like this, like I'm not gonna answer. So like I'll give you an example. So and no offense, like he's like, could the best male giant schnauzer be as good or better than any of your average herder females? My wife is allergic to dogs, but we need a protection dog ASAP, and we're moving to Colombia in 6 months. It's like, sorry, that wasn't the question I was looking to read, but I will answer that question. Didn't mean to insult you. People that are asking me like, like Husky or Great Dane or something. It's like I ain't answering that. That's a waste of time. I'm not gonna get into that kind of nonsense. But to answer your question, I mean, look, for personal protection, is it possible you could get a good giant schnauzer? Sure, it's possible, right? Is it likely? No, but is it possible? Sure. Um, Macedonian gangsters, would you mix Dutchies with your working line German Shepherds? I do herders all the time. I do herders all the time. I'll probably do another. I'll probably have another breeding with Juice hopefully soon. So let's see. Smokestack says, "How do you tell if a dog will actually defend you versus one that has fear aggression?" Well, when you've been in this business for a while, you're able to determine the difference between intent versus a dog that's just making a really big display, right? The no pill man says, if I pre-correct my dog for arousal and we pass without incident, do I praise a reward or just keep walking? You can certainly praise a successful pass. There's nothing wrong with that. The no pill man says, your reactive rehab bundle has pushed me and my dog leaps and bounds. So thank you for that. No problem at all. Thank you. Better Built Dogs sends a $5 super chat. Thank you again for the seminar on reactivity and emotion last night on Instagram. Yeah, guys, go check that live out. I got into we started just talking about kind of dog world drama, but then I really got into and we talked a lot about it in that live. So by all means, guys, jump on there and have a read. Tara McFadden says, have you ever trained a wolf dog? If you have, was there anything different about them that you noticed, especially compared to your high drive herders? Yeah, I absolutely have trained a wolf dog, or three, I think, at this point. Like when we're talking about like real ones, one of them was basically a wild animal. The difference, the one never looked at you, would never look at you, would never acknowledge your presence. It would like stare through you, or it would just never look at you. It would go along with everything, but you knew it was a wild animal, the way it paced the pen. You have to understand that the domestication process for dogs happened over thousands of years, and dogs and wolves are the same in that they can breed and produce viable offspring. So we know that, they're genetically basically the same. Of course, what we've changed in them is how they look and also how they react to stimuli, right? As well as, how they perceive us. And obviously that varies from breed to breed. Some breeds are more independent, other breeds are much more willing to work with you. How they react to pressure also varies from breed to breed. For instance, if you look at how a husky reacts to pressure versus how a Labrador retriever reacts to pressure, and when I speak of pressure, I'm speaking of pressure from the handler, like pulling on the leash, right? Your typical husky, if you pull on the leash, is going to start shrieking and biting. It's like, but yeah, wolf dogs are not pets. I wouldn't recommend them. They're generally very nervous. And the reason why they're nervous is because nervousness and fear, like a lot of people think of wolves as like these really like tough, strong, noble creatures. But when you put them in the environment of, civilization, being surrounded by humans and dogs and cars and so on and so forth, they're complete nervous wrecks because that fear actually keeps them alive. Wild animals, for the most part, are extremely fearful because even an injury, right? A limp, a broken jaw, anything that debilitates or takes away from the performance and ability of the animal is a death sentence in the wild. So naturally, they evolve to be hyper cautious. And that does not lend itself well to the civilized world. One of the things that we've domesticated out of wolves when we turn them into dogs is that inherent fear. Now, of course, some dogs still carry that to some degree in greater forms. Like their level of self-preservation is extremely high versus like when you look at a really good working dog, for instance, their level of self-preservation is extremely low. We've bred that caution out of them because it doesn't serve us when it comes to those dogs being, able to do the things that we need them to do. Ruslana says, what qualities do you think bull herder breed trying to improve in or add to shepherds by adding bull type breed genetics? Probably a little more tenacity and a little less self preservation. Like if you look at the pit bull terrier, if you look at the bull breeds that are actually used in a working capacity, I would also say some bone, right? Those dogs have really heavy, thick, athletic builds, right? They're very dense. They're just literally, when you feel like, a bull breed versus like your herding dog, like the bull breed has like double the density. Now, that much density does impact performance somewhat, especially when we're talking about like endurance. And a herder needs to have really good endurance. But then there's also that tenacious commitment with a complete lack of self-preservation. A lot of the herding dogs, to some degree, retain some level of self-preservation, whereas the bull breeds, when something triggers the drive, when something triggers their arousal, all their self-preservation goes out the window completely. So, is it a good idea? I mean, I've seen it fail more than I've seen it work, but is it necessary? I don't think it is necessary. To be honest, I wouldn't look to do that mix. If I wanted to improve, the herder, I would simply do crosses between the Malinois and the German Shepherd or the Dutch Shepherd. I wouldn't bring bull breed genetics into it, but I understand why people do it. Amanda Dillon says, can you explain how you use the concept of epigenetics in your training? I strongly believe in epigenetics. Guys, there was this mice, right, where they took mice and exposed a test group of mice to a very unique odor and then caused them a lot of stress. I can't remember whether they gave them an electric shock or what they did, but they did something that was very aversive from the mouse's perspective and very unpleasant, and they paired it with that unique odor. Then what they found was the mice that were produced from those mice that had the bad experience, even though they themselves didn't have a bad experience, also had a stress response to that smell. Now, of course, the question is this something unique to mice? Is this something unique to short-lived species that are prey animals? Or is it something that is general, from humans to high animals all the way down to low animals like, mice and chickens and stuff like this? Is this concept of epigenetics, memory, genetic memory? Is it real? Like, how much does it impact, things? Like, if you think about a short-lived prey creature like a mouse, right? Like, they don't really have a lot of time to learn from their parents, or that there's not really like a process where they like follow mummy around for years on end. No, like within a month or two, they're basically on their own and they have to fend for themselves. So it would make sense that that type of species would have some level memory in order for them to avoid danger, especially considering that they're a prey species, right? Versus, a carnivorous species that spends a lot more time being reared by the parents, like, for instance, I don't know, a lion or, even something like an elephant or a human being, right? Do we have that same level of epigenetics? I would guess that we probably don't. But just on the safe side, I have the belief that if you do certain things with the female when she's pregnant, it makes it more likely that the puppies will turn turn the way that you want. So I will continue training my females until it's like literally dangerous to do so, in the sense that they're so pregnant we don't want to do anything more with them. So bite work, searching for the ball, obedience, all of the things that I would like the puppies to do, I will do with the female. And I want, the hormones, the dopamine, the adrenaline, all that stuff that the female feels when she's doing that work to go to the puppies. And I do believe that it has a positive impact. Anthony Mack says, when you're an experienced handler, what are the few benefits you find in a spring pull versus a regular back tie? Spring pull just keeps the line from tangling up underneath the dog. Someone's laughing. They're like, you're talking about the baby German Shepherds. They look like fruit bats until a year old. Yeah, like some of them are ugly until they're 2 years old, to be quite frank. Zach says, beside your own book, recommend any others for dog psychology and behavior? Looking to strengthen my knowledge. No, I can't, just because I can't recall reading any that I was like, wow, this is something super different. I'm not saying they don't exist; they obviously must. I haven't read them, so I can't speak to it. Hmm. Wes Fish says, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? What are your main objectives in the dog world? Wait and see. Thank you, Wes, by the way. I appreciate it. Mina says, thanks for the live. What things do average pet owners do unconsciously that hurt the relationship between dog and owner? That is a good question. Containment, right? They contain the dog instead of training the dog. And by containing the dog, and I see, by the way, experienced handlers do this all the time, right? They're always dragging their dog from place to place. The leash is tight and the dog is like kind of held right next to them, whether he's on a pinch collar, choke chain, or even a regular flat collar, halty, whatever you want to call it. The dog is always being contained, right? The dog is not put in enough situations where they have to control themselves. They're always being contained and moved from one state of containment to another. And then people wonder why, the dog, listen when there's significant distractions present, or things that arouse the dog that are present. The first thing that I begin teaching my puppies is how to control themselves. And again, going back to the Instagram live that I did yesterday, I speak about teaching dogs, giving dogs choices, right? I give my dogs choices in training. Now, one choice is going to lead to a good outcome and the other choice is going to lead to a bad outcome. But when you give the dog the choice to screw up and show him why screwing up, whatever screwing up is a bad idea, and why doing the right thing is a good idea, you have a dog now that's able to control himself and to exercise impulse control. And impulse control is like any muscle, right? The more you do it, the better you get at it, the more it becomes generalized and able to apply to different things. The less you do it, the less it's going to work. Even if you maybe focus on impulse control in one area, but you allow it completely to go out the picture in every other area, it will even bleed over into the one area that you think you've worked on a lot. So general impulse control, whether it's a working dog or a pet dog, is really important, right? And a lot of people don't do it. Things like, don't pull me on the leash, hold your place, come when I call you, don't leave that alone. Things like that, right? Very simple, basic life things that people neglect because they're focused on doing the sexier things in dog training. And fundamentals bleed into everything, and it will completely, relationship. Because what is a relationship, right? Like, a lot of people have this kind of amorphous view of what a relationship is when it comes to dogs, and I don't think that's right. Like, we should be able to distill it down to a couple of things, right? It's like, does your dog love you? Well, My dogs love everyone they live with, and I think most people's dogs love everyone they live with, right? It's just a natural thing. It's part of the process of domestication. You don't have to do anything with them. They're like, oh, you live here, I live here too. I like you. You're one of the pack, right? But when we speak about a relationship, that's maybe one part of the relationship, but that's not a complete relationship. For me, a complete relationship is one of trust, and trust comes from you being really consistent, right? It doesn't mean that you just, and again, this is where the ideologues make a mistake, and they think, oh, trust is only nice things. And it's like, if you think about people that you really trusted, like let's say you were blessed to have, good parents that cared about you and they wanted good outcomes for you. Did they only give you nice things? No, of course not. They provided you with discipline. They provided you with positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment. They said nice things to you. They said not nice things to you, right? But if you knew that they loved you and they cared for you, and these things were coming from their desire to see you have a good outcome, right? You understand that everything they did was from that perspective, whether it was good or bad at the time from your perspective, right? This is where a good relationship comes from, and this is what dogs crave. It's always funny. You see these people, I prioritize my relationship with my dog, right? And that's their excuse to not ever correct their dog for making a mistake, never to show their dog when they're making a wrong choice, right? In a way that the dog understands, not in the way that they wish the dog understood, and they don't, and I always laugh because I'm like, man, if I took your dog, your dog would love me more than you in like 2 weeks, right? Right? And I'm going to do all the things that you think are going to ruin your relationship, but I would do them in a way that's clear for the dog, and the dog will love that clarity because that clarity is safe. That clarity provides safety, and that's what trust is consistent reliability that the dog can trust. That is the ultimate form of trust for them, is they know to act around you, they know what they should do around you and what they shouldn't do, and it creates that trust and that safe feeling that the dogs need to have in order to give you their all, to give you their best, right? And then also being able, of course, to allow the dog to engage in what is natural for them, right? So for my dogs, for instance, that are working dogs, we want them to engage in bite work, we want them to engage in tracking, we want them to engage in high arousal, high dopamine activities that they're designed to engage in, and it lets them be all they can be, right? And that's just an example for a working dog, for instance. Every dog kind of has its own specific proclivities, and allowing them to engage in that. But you can never allow a dog to fully engage in that side of their personality, be all they can be, and open up, if you have no control over them, if you have no trust, if you have no, real ability to ask the dog to exercise impulse control, because then it becomes dangerous, right? Then it's like, oh man, what if he goes too far? What if he goes out of control? What if he bites me? What if he bites somebody else? What if he runs away? There's all these things that people have because they've never really created a complete relationship with the dog. At what age can you determine whether or not you have a good dog for IGP? Um, I mean, it depends on what you're doing, right? Like, it depends on what you're doing. That's a very hard question to answer. Dog is, there's a lot of variables. I say this to people: if you bought a dog from a good breeding, okay, that's number one. I don't care what the dog is showing you. Did you buy a dog from a good breeding, from proven bloodlines, from bloodlines that produce dogs that are? So I'll give you guys an example, right? I just did a breeding between Taz, aka Kamikaze, von Marchberger, which is a female that I have. Really, really nice female, super breed, super quality, super drive, super grips, all the things that I want to see in a working dog, right? Very nice physical expression, just a top tier female. Really nice pedigree, and she's consistent with the pedigree. Her mother worked the same, her grandfather worked the same, so on and so forth. So there's consistency, and she's Chico's full niece, by the way, right? So like, there's consistency in the family line. You see the same behavior and the same phenotypic expression across multiple generations, which is always nice to see, okay? Now, I bred her to Urk de la Houtberger, okay? Or Berger, I should say. Urk was himself a WSV champion, and Urk has now produced multiple dogs that have competed at at world championships, multiple. Like, he is probably one of the most slept on studs of the last decade. Okay. I just did a breeding with her and him. Now, if that breeding, I have no doubt that every puppy in that litter, to some degree or other, is going to be able to perform in the sport, right? Some of, maybe all of them will be on the world level. I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly, because that's the quality of the breeding. So now, you don't buy a puppy because you think you're going to pick the best puppy. I always laugh at people that think that. You buy a puppy because you believe in the breeding and you believe in the parents, you believe in the grandparents, the great grandparents. You've looked at the pedigrees, you've looked at the outcomes, you trust the breeder, and you say, okay, I believe in this. I'm going to take that puppy and I'm going to roll the dice and take a risk, right? That's why you buy a dog, not because you think you're gonna be able to pick the best puppy. I don't care what the puppy shows you. If the parents are not good, if the line is full of inconsistencies, chances are, I don't care what that puppy's showing you when he's 8 weeks old, it's not gonna work out. All that being said, when you have the dog, what are you looking for? You're looking for a decent nervous system. It's okay for the dog to be scared of some things. What you want to see is that the dog does have the ability to bounce back and slowly improves over time. You want to see that the dog has a reasonable level of drive to work with you. They should want to play with you. They should want to eat, right? Now, of course, with puppies, that's a lot. Their attention span is very short, and their drive is much less than it will be, for instance, at like 8 months to a year to even 18 months. So, these are the fundamentals that you need, right? There needs to be some courage, there needs to be some drive. And then from the rest is up to you. You have to put in those repetitions, and you have to do repetitions that make sense and build the dog instead of break the dog down. Cole Fisher says, was watching the Ultimate Puppy Package when you went live. I'm looking to be very intentional about exposure training. Do you ever worry about parvo with your 8 to 16 week old pups? I mean, not really, unless you're going to, there's like tons of like other dogs, and there's a chance that you're gonna run into like sick dogs. For me, if I'm like taking a puppy just like out and about in public, I'm not particularly worried about it. If you're going to go to the dog park, well, yeah, I mean, there's a high risk of parvo in a place like that, right? Sorry, guys, just going through all this. Mm. Luneth Dane says, based on your experience, what is the energy or breed specific requirement level of a German Shepherd versus a Showline Malinois? A Showline Malinois is an oxymoron. I know some people are doing it. The Malinois is a working breed. Don't get a Showline. It's a complete waste of time. You know, um, you're probably going to get a very soft, nervous dog. I wouldn't do it. What is the energy or breed specific requirement level? Again, German Shepherd. You've got really intense working lines, and you've got sleepy showline dogs. You've got reactive dogs from no particular bloodline. There's a lot of you know if you want something that's low drive, get yourself a showline German Shepherd. How about that? Can you have too much prey drive? Someone asks. No, you cannot. I don't think anything about bull herders. Like for me, there's just not enough of them to really worry about it. It's not a particular thing for me. I mean, if you want to roll the dice and risk it, by all means, go ahead. But I don't really have any particular opinions. Amir, you're asking me about bite force. The only people that ask about bite force are people that don't really understand bite work. At the end of the day, if a dog is biting you with intent, it's going to hurt. You're not going to be like, well, this dog provides 350 psi, and this dog's more at the in the 450 range. It's like he's biting me with intent. He's trying to hurt me. At the end of the day, I've seen small dogs that bite really hard and big dogs that bite like a pillow. It's all about the intent of the dog. Khalil says, hello from Mauritius. Quick question. How do you train a Malinois puppy who has not been out of the house since she was born? Just got her from a breeder, 4 months old now, seems very fearful. It's not ideal. Take her out, expose her as much as you can, and see if it gets better. That's all I can tell you to do. Jason says, any tip to improve play drive in 9-month-old female German Shepherd, able to get about 5 good reps and then tends to check out in the environment. Love the content you put out. Cheers. Yeah, well, number one, is it a working line dog? Is it a show line dog? We have to be realistic about the level of play that you can expect, right? Like at the end of the day, the dog does need to have some level of genetic drive. Pet my dog, you're not going to have that much drive for play compared to maybe a working. So that's number one. Number two, the dog's focused on the. All right, well, how does the dog comport him or herself in the environment? I find that dogs that won't play because they're so focused on the environment are dogs that are generally out of control. They're dragging on the leash. They're ignoring you because they're too busy smelling the smells and seeing the sights, and they have no interest in working with you or exercising any level of impulse control when there's competing motivators around. So what you need to do is get that resolved first. Then usually once you get that resolved, the dog becomes a lot more open to playing with you. And then of course, how do you play, and why are you pushing the dog to exhaustion every time? If you know that the dog's done at 5 reps, do 3 reps. Call it a day. Make it an exciting experience for the dog. Don't overwork the dog every single time. Shayna McDonald Dog Training says Stefan critiquing Carson on Patreon was a great watch. Thanks for continuing to make great content. I'm glad you guys liked it. There was a lot of gems in those people. For those people on the Patreon, if you haven't had a chance to watch that, watch that. You're watching, you know, a master at his craft, making some small tweaks in the performance of a really good dog and a really good handler, and taking them to the next level. Those types of lessons are invaluable. Canine Ty says, my Elite Off Leash course is finally coming to an end after 3 years of having it. I was a legacy member. Big thanks to you for all dog training knowledge. I've learned a lot from you. No problem, man. I'm glad that you enjoyed your access to the course, and I hope you and your dog continue to do well together. Rachel says, what do you think about rehabbing Mals and Shepherds in shelters? Is it doable? What do you mean rehabbing? Do you mean taking generally what are fearful and reactive dogs that who knows what upbringing, and making them able to live in the real world? Sure. If we're talking about the pipe dream of pulling these dogs from shelters and turning them into fantastic working dogs, no, I don't believe in that at all. But if you talk about like taking the dogs from the shelters and getting them to the point where some people, if they're sufficiently motivated and are willing to put the time in, can live with them, sure, it can be done. Vajokaru says, we're about a week into the Elite Off Leash course. The dog is doing really good. Is it okay to use a retractable 26-foot lead with the prong collar, or is that a bad idea? It is a bad idea, sir. Ryan Torres says, hello, Haz. What else do you include in your certification? I have a few of your courses, and I'm curious if there's something else included in it. if you're talking about the trainer's course, our trainer's course includes your certification, obviously, where you know, you go through the process of training a dog in our system, the real world, going through all the necessary behaviors that we require you to be able to demonstrate that you can do under heavy levels of distraction, and you know, then having me certify you and saying that you are, you know, fit to carry the title of pro trainer. The course also contains a lot of business stuff in relation to like how we run our curriculums, you know, things about running our business, obtaining clients, you know, things specific to a dog trainer, how we run sessions, stuff like that. So there's really two components. Component number one is, you know, utilizing the online courses that we have, and of course you would get access to all of them all our pro trainers have, you know, unlimited access to all our courses, but using our training system to actually train the dog in a functional way, number one, how to go through that process. Number two, learning it from the trainer end, not just the client's end of the spectrum. Number three, certification from myself. And you may notice that I'm quite willing to fail people. My certification means something. It's not that you paid the money and took a multiple choice test or whatever else. It's you actually demonstrated and you showed that you are capable of achieving this standard that is the standard of a Shield certified pro trainer. And then, of course, you know, the written test as well. So that is what is included in our pro trainer course. We all our pro trainers are listed on our website along with their trainer certification, which is on the YouTube channel as well. Rachel says, love watching the pro trainer certification videos, life goals. I think it's super important from a transparency standpoint. I'm glad you enjoy the videos, but from a transparency standpoint, if someone is, you know, saying that they can train dogs, they should be able to demonstrate beyond a shadow of doubt that they can achieve a minimum standard of training with the dog. They can show that proficiency, not in an empty room, not in an empty field, not on an agility course or some such nonsense. I'm talking about they can go out into the real world, because that's where our clients live. Out in the real world, they live in neighborhoods. They live close to parks. There's squirrels, there's dogs, there's people, there's cars. They need to be able to go out into that environment and show that they can teach a dog all the, you know, fundamental behaviors a dog should have, and that dog can perform on and off leash, and perform at a functional level all those behaviors that we want. That's the minimum standard for our pro trainers. Now, a lot of them go above and beyond, which is what we highly recommend, but we do have a minimum standard, and I think it's really important and transparent that people see this is the standard. This is what a pro trainer is. If they can do this, they are not a pro trainer. All right, guys, it's been nice talking to all of you. William, if you're interested in a dog, you can go through the website and contact us through there. We do not import puppies. We don't need to. We have our own breeding program here. But anyways, guys, it's been really nice talking to all of you. Wishing you all the best. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.